approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it. It's in the news about that aspect of it, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it. So.
Doesn't the AG have to tell you if you're named?
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. If they had anything, I assume they would have released it. The whole thing is a hoax. Those files were run by bad, sick people. If they had anything, why didn't they use it when I was killing Joe and then he gave out because he was 25 points down? I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women, that I can tell you. They say there's a drawing of a woman, and I don't do drawings of women. And also, you know, Epstein was always a very controversial guy, so if they would have had something, they would have used it.
So this drumbeat comes after Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche met with Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell over 2 days, a meeting where Maxwell was granted limited immunity to answer questions without fear of retribution later on. That is, only if she tells the truth. Joining us now, NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley. So, Ryan, we just heard the president address a question about Maxwell and also slam all this as a hoax. What are the takeaways as you listen to what the president said this hour?
This is a very quick pivot that they're trying to make with his supporters in the MAGA base who have, for years, been wondering about the Epstein list, and now all of a sudden, never mind, don't look behind the curtain. It's a very quick switch, and it's not clear if it's totally going to work. I think you've seen some leaders, maybe after some cajoling, sort of back off in the movement from this, but overall, I think there's a lot of people out there who are still very curious and wonder about this really quick switch from, this being such a central component of this movement, including leaders within the FBI, who the two heads of the FBI, the director and the deputy director, who had questions about this and appeared on podcasts about it in the past, and now there's just all this friction between the White House, the Justice Department, and the FBI over the handling and release of these files.
What came of her meeting with Todd Blanche? And well, she had 2 meetings, frankly, 2 days in a row, right? What did we learn about this limited immunity agreement she received?
We didn't learn a lot of the content to come out of it, but, the limited immunity deal is not surprising. It's sort of the king for the day or queen for the day offering. But what is unusual, of course, is that you have the president's former criminal defense lawyer, who is now the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, meeting directly with a convicted criminal defendant who is expected to spend the next 20 years behind bars. And what the incentives are for her are very clear here in terms of trying to get perhaps a pardon or perhaps some sort of leniency or even better conditions. Just everything lines up in terms of telling the administration or telling Todd Blanche exactly what he would want to hear rather than necessarily the full truth. And her truth is a real question here because of the pattern that she showed in the past of deceiving law enforcement. So she's not necessarily the most credible witness in the world, especially considering what she's been convicted of.
Yeah, very important to point all that out. Thank you so much. Joining us now is Eric Fudali. He's an attorney who has represented some of Jeffrey Epstein's accusers. Eric, first, your reaction to what we're hearing from the president this morning, talking about pardons of Maxwell, saying essentially not ruling it out. He didn't answer anything definitively, right? And calling it all a hoax.
Just the mention of a pardon is so offensive to the victims. The victims have been through so much, and they have been wronged at every step of the way for decades. The 90s, there was sort of the sham nonsense FBI investigation. Of course, then in 2008, Alex Acosta gives Jeffrey Epstein this sweetheart deal that allows him to continue to abuse women just after that. Then, of course, Epstein is finally arrested. The victims think, okay, now there's going to be some justice. Of course, he's allowed to escape accountability by killing himself. And now, finally, there's been one person convicted in all of this. It's Ghislaine Maxwell, who's convicted of child sex trafficking, a heinous crime. So just even the notion, the discussion, the possibility of a pardon is so offensive to the victims. It's so disheartening, and it just continues this decades-long pattern of re-victimization of the victims. And
now Maxwell was given this limited immunity deal in part to take part in these new meetings and conversations, answer questions of Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General. Should that have happened?
I mean, if she wants to give information, I'm okay with that. You know, of course, on behalf of the victims, and I've represented a lot of victims of Jeffrey Epstein, you know, we do want exposure. They do want accountability for those who facilitated, for those who worked with Jeffrey Epstein, for those who enabled the most prolific predator of our time. There is a desire for exposure. There is a desire for closure. So if this leads to some exposure of those who enabled Jeffrey Epstein to be able to have this reign of terror on these women for so long, I'm in favor of that, but not in exchange for a pardon, not in exchange for any actual leniency towards Ghislaine Maxwell's sentence. I believe she, and I think I speak on behalf of most victims, believe that she should serve absolutely the fullest extent of her sentence.
We don't know much about what has come of these meetings that happened late last week, but we do know it was the president's former criminal attorney, now current deputy AG, talking with the co-conspirator of the president's former friend who was accused of such horrific actions. Do you trust anything that comes out of the DOJ or the White House at this point?
You know, especially when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, it's hard to trust anything. You know, as I stated before, he has gotten away with everything. For decades and decades, people have known what Jeffrey Epstein is doing, and he's gotten away with it every single time.
So do you trust this White House to get to the bottom of it and to be transparent with the American people?
Unfortunately, I do not. I do not trust anything that's come out of anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein, especially as it relates to this administration.
Congressman Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, a bipartisan duo, have teamed up, and they're trying to force a vote in Congress that would require the DOJ to release all the Epstein files minus the stuff that would be, you know, private identification of victims specifically. Take a listen to how they're differing, however, on the Maxwell issue. Watch.
Do you think Ghislaine Maxwell should be pardoned or have a commutation of her sentence, her 20-year sentence?
No, I don't. She should testify, but she's been indicted twice on perjury. This is why we need the files. This is why we need independent evidence.
If she has information that could help us, then I think she should testify. Let's get that out there. And whatever they need to do to compel that testimony, as long as it's truthful, I would be in favor of.
So Massey there suggesting potentially a pardon could be justifiable if they get more information from her.
I disagree strongly. I believe it's absolutely not justifiable. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of child sex trafficking. She had a full trial in front of a jury of her peers, and she was convicted. There was absolutely no justifiable reason for Ghislaine Maxwell to have her sentence reduced in any capacity. And the fact that we're even considering, or someone's considering on the basis of her perhaps giving some information, there's a lot of information already out there. They either should release the files or they should not. But relying on Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony in exchange for a pardon is just a ridiculous notion.
Eric Vidali, thank you so much for the conversation.